Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, it's me Gamerturk and this is weekly War of Underworld Q&A, the somewhat weekly show where you ask the questions and I answer. As usual, we got three types of questions. Normal questions, where the spoiler barrier is the episode in the title of this video, so if you watched up until War of Underworld episode 22, you are safe to watch these questions. Then we got opinion questions, which is exactly the same. Episode 22, you watched it, you're safe to watch the opinion questions. The only difference from the normal ones is that these questions are not all that factually based, but rather opinion related stuff, as the opinion questions title suggests. The third type of questions is the spoiler questions, so any kind of question beyond the contents of episode 22 of War of Underworld, those questions will be in this one, but don't worry, I will push a spoiler warning before we get to those questions, so you can safely leave the video before hearing any of that. And also, before we begin this Q&A session, I got some small disclaimers. This is a bundle Q&A again because I skipped episode 21 of War of Underworld, so both questions from War of Underworld 21 and 22 will be in this one, and this led to there being quite a whole bunch of questions, about over 4 dozen if I'm not mistaken, so I had to cut down the amount of questions quite a lot. If you don't see your question here, my apologies, that's completely on me this time around for missing last week, but hey, what can I do? This is the result. And we are starting with the normal questions. First normal question is a whole bunch of the same question from various people, despite the fact that I answered in my explained episode for that specific scene. And with that, Gabriel Miller tasted the collective incarnation of the entire world to a point where his soul no longer could process it, causing his demise. Can you explain how Gabriel died? I'm confused on how Gabriel died. Why did Gabriel die IRL? Why did Gabriel Miller die when he logged out the second time? Same questions a whole bunch of times. The answer is he was fed the entire incarnation of the entire Underworld populace, both the human realm and the Dark Territory, and in the end his brain was not able to process all that information and it kinda gave up. He died that way. Next question, starting with the actual questions. How did Alice realize that Kirito and Asuna's dive was about to end? In fact, their dive had ended 3 weeks ago. I mentioned this in the explained episode as well. But the exact way how Alice got notified of their wake up is that, well, she can contact through her transponders inside her head. That was actually supposed to be in the episode as well, but a certain scene, the ALO scene, was cut, and yeah, it kinda became impossible to deduce on its own, and yeah, I kinda glossed over it in my explained video because that wasn't all that relevant to what was happening. But yeah, she does have a transponder in her head. Next question. The female reporter questioned Rinko on the potential for Fluctlights in the unskilled labor force, but it quickly turned into an argument for AI rights. I was curious on the point Rinko made about Fluctlights not being able to be mass-produced since they have to grow up, but what about the time acceleration in Underworld? Couldn't they just do that? Yes, they can do that. They can easily accelerate them, and from our point of view, that may look like a mass production, but the point Rinko was making in that case was that they're not exactly being produced, they are actually living, growing up, gaining experience, etc., just like our own lives. And much like we are not being produced, those artificial Fluctlights are not being mass produced either, they are just living. And that was Rinko's point about the AI rights in that situation. Not that they can create that many AIs, but that they are alive beings, they are not being produced at all. Next question. Why was there no kind of explanation for Alice accepting that her world is a simulation? Without even entering the rest of that question, she kinda learned about that a long time ago, before the War of Underworld even began. When they were facing Quinella, she learned about the other side already. She knew there were quote-unquote gods on the other side ruling their world in a sense. It's not that the anime cut anything on that front, it's just we didn't get barely anything on that topic in the first place in the books. And also throughout War of Underworld, you know, it's kind of a topic for Alice to find her place in the world, and she's kind of starting to take things step by step. So she's not just jumping from one entirely different concept to another one and has to thus adjust. She's just taking every single new piece of information one by one, step by step, gradually moving forward and dealing with things as they come. So yeah, I know that's not exactly an answer because yeah, we didn't get any of that in the books either. But that's just how I see things, how Alice approaches the current significant change of her own world. Like, her entire world was shaken up already back at the Central Cathedral during the Cathedral Assault. And that's just an extension of that process, you know? Her entire world was already a lie created by Quinella, so the world she lives in, being a lie, is not all that different in terms of that process. Next one, the answer to this may just be pure speculation, but if you log in with an account, such as what the employees would do if they were needed to go in the world, does your appearance in the simulation change with time or no, because that's just for artificial fluctlights? Well, considering Kirito did have his kid face back in Underworld, yes, technically there is aging going on, and there is no explicit statement about this, but I think it's pretty damn clear that the setting can just be disabled and you can just show up and stay the same for hundreds of years. Why is it that accounts such as CD4323, the Master of the Sacred Arts one, I believe that should be a screenshot from the earlier episodes when they were selecting accounts, only has a system control level of 20 and the rest of what we see are below that? Is 20 considered really good, or did Wrath just not think they needed accounts with higher levels? I think you're looking too deep into it, because I don't think they... Not Wrath, the anime staff did not put too much thought into the levels they show on the placeholder screens. I feel like that answer is a safe one for me to give. Next one, so how much years of this 200 plus period is Moon Cradle covering? Just a single month. I know some sly fox did a video on the time skip, but it's just Moon Cradle. We don't even know what happens 99.9% of that time skip at all. We only know a single month that takes place 1.5 years after the end of War of Underworld. It's just the time skip is basically non-existent for us on the outside. If you have any other future related questions, chances are you will find some of your answers in my United Ring 1 video from 2 or 3 years ago, and in my Volume 24 United Ring 3 video that I did a couple months ago, probably. So yeah, you should check those out. Next question, and this is something we talked a lot with Valgav over on SAO Wikia, as well as many other people. Can you please explain what kind of being Kayaba is right now? Is that the Polish word order again, Val? Is he similar to an actual Fluctlight existing in a cyber world without real life body, like Underworld Residence, Higa's copy or Star King? Some kind of cyber ghost / phantom, digital version of real Kayaba's memories? What exactly did happen when he was using his nerve gear to copy himself into the internet? Thanks for the reply and obligatory finish. Kiriasu forever, thank you for that, because Ono already cut out way too much of that anyways. So yeah, we don't have a clear answer, that's why we keep discussing about it so much over on SAO Wikia. In my opinion, it can be considered a Fluctlight, again, until Reki says anything about the matter, unless he overcomplicates things again. We have no way of exactly saying what it is. But in my opinion, it is a Fluctlight. It is an exact copy of Kayaba, regardless of how it was produced. We know he's exactly like Kayaba, existing in just a digital medium. I usually say digital ghost due to this ambiguity going on, just not confuse people on the topic by talking and having to explain way too much, but in my opinion that does constitute as a Fluctlight. Next question, I wanted to know why Kirito wanted to delete the 200 plus years of memory. Was there any problem if the memories were not deleted? Well, the biggest problem is that's 200 years worth of memories in your brain constantly haunting you, you know? Haunting is probably not the exactly correct word, but I feel it is fitting, because you will just, you know, you lived 17, 18 years in the real world, then spend 200 years in an entirely different existing plane of life. And you can't just go back to the old one like nothing has happened. So, while we don't get an explicitly stated reason, I do not believe it can be the memory limitations of your brain, because the memories are not exactly deleted. When Wrath says deleting the memories in regards to a real person, they don't have the technology to delete the memories of real brains. They can just seal certain partitions and remove access for regular things, and then, you know, the memories keep resurfacing at certain times, which you'll see in the far future, let's say. But yeah, the point being, they're not being deleted, so you're not exactly creating new space, so the limitation of the brain is not exactly the issue here, which only leaves the other option, that is, they don't want to come back to this life while having an entirely different life in their brains already of 170 years. Let's go with 170. And with that, we are moving on to the opinion questions. Personal question to you, Gamerturk. Which side character do you think should receive more time/character development in future arcs? So I already have a decent amount of information on Unital Ring, so I'll try to distance myself from that. But my first answer is going to be Klein, because yeah, he's kind of like a very fun character for me. I really enjoy whenever he's on screen with Kirito or anybody he can just bounce off of, really. It creates really entertaining scenes. I would love to see more edgy screen time, because I feel like, you know, he's a very interesting character, let's say. But for edgy to work in the anime environment, in my opinion, they first need to adapt, at the very least, Hopeful Chant to give him a proper backstory. You know, he's just this guy who comes in as an antagonist to bring his lost friend back to life, and then suddenly becomes an ally to Kirito because they didn't adapt Cordial Chords in any way, shape or form, or didn't even hint at it. So I would love to have Eiji coming back, but for him to work as a proper side character, they need to at least cover Hopeful Chant in one way, shape or form. Aside from that, Argo, please give us more Argo. I don't want to go into progressive or some future content, but Argo is absolutely a blessing. But yeah, that's the three I would pick. Next question. I know this is gonna sound idiotic, even Reiki stated that Underworld is a different reality. He keeps giving very ambiguous answers on purpose. Nothing is confirmed. It's not confirmed for, or it's not confirmed against. He keeps saying, you know, it's a different timeline, and then when someone asks what happens in the future of SAO, he just answers, go look at Underworld, what happened there is the answer, and then completely backtracks again and says, but they are not the same continuity, so just wait for the novels to go even further and finally connect them officially. And that was an entirely different tangent. Let me catch up again. He said, in your opinion, does the Fluctlight copy of Kirito confirm or might be Graphite Edge or not? In my opinion, Star King cannot be Graphite Edge, because that's an entirely different tone. I don't think a 200-year-old grumpy grandpa of a Kirito can act like how Graphite Edge does. Next question. Where in the story do you recommend for an anime only to start reading? Should I go back and read everything from Volume 1, start at the Alicization Saga, or go on ahead to Moon Cradle, Unital Ring, and or progressive novels? So this is gonna be quite the opinionated question. Usually when I'm asked questions like this, I should say, you know, just start from the beginning, experience everything as it's meant to be. But the problem is, once upon a time I did exactly that. I barely managed to read Volume 1 Aincrad, and then got stuck in the middle of Volume 2 Aincrad, which is the side stories with Shirika, Sachi, etc. I would not recommend you starting from Volume 1 of Sword Art Online. If anything, I would say it's better to start from the beginning of Alicization, Volume 9 Alicization Beginning, because there's just so much world building going on, especially in Alicization Beginning and onwards, that's the point where you'll start really benefiting from reading the light novels. But of course, there are always those people, I don't blame those people because that's exactly what happened to me with Volume 1 and Volume 2, that would go, oh, I experienced all of these already, it's gonna be really boring if I start from the beginning of Alicization again to re-experience all of those stories. And that is completely understandable. If that's the kind of thinking you have in there, yes, just jump over to Moon Cradle. And that's another and right there. If you don't enjoy inconclusive stories, jump to United Ring instead once January comes. Moon Cradle has quite the negative reception back in Japan. Because it's not exactly a complete story, so to say. It's not exactly the right word to say it's incomplete, but there's the main drive of the story, which just ends up getting swiped aside and not really get a conclusion, so incomplete is not exactly the wrong word either. But yeah, if you don't like that, just jump over to United Ring once January comes. Progressives, I strongly recommend Progressives, no matter how you feel, just go back to Progressives and read them, they are very good. There's a whole lot of variety, each floor is completely different. Maybe you won't like some floors, but like others, you know, the setting really establishes different atmospheres within the novels itself. But yeah, either way, I strongly recommend going for progressive light novels, especially if you enjoy Aincrad and ever said, this anime has way too many time skips, I wish they didn't do that. Progressive is your way to go. And with that, we are actually moving over to the spoiler question. So if you don't want spoilers, if you don't want any information beyond episode 22 of War of Underworld, this is where you leave. I'll give you 3 seconds. 3, 2, before you leave, please hit the like button. 1, and here we go. Could an artificial fluctlight be put into a real human's body? This is gonna be a very quick answer. Please do check Axel World. Those who read Axel World exactly know what I'm talking about. But I can't spell it out because it's a massive spoiler for the series. Next one. I really want to know why everyone's making Star King an antagonist. I'm aware of the hint of image from Axel World Volume 19, which we still don't know for sure if it's Star King or not. And that Star King is quite a suffering, tragic, mature character who overcame 200 years. Suffering, tragic, he lived 170 years peacefully with a loving Asuna by his side. So people are just taking a couple sentences from his mouth, speaking hopelessly, and think that is exactly what the character is, which is not the case. Now, Star King may end up becoming an antagonist, but certainly not in a negative way. It's just from a perspective point, he can oppose the 17-18-year-old Kirito that's out there right now with his memories blocked because, you know, he lived less while the other one lived longer. And naturally, you know, 10 years creates a huge perspective shift in your mind. Can you imagine what happens after 200 years? So from Kirito's perspective, Star King can become an antagonist, but, you know, as the grand scheme of things, not really, no. The reason people are doing that, I don't know, they think Star King is such a cool character based on 5 sentences he spouts. Oh boy, that's actually the final question, maybe I could have talked a bit more about that. But yeah, I don't know, maybe we'll do that at a separate time where we specifically talk about Star King in a scripted video, so I don't ramble the same things over and over and I can give you some proper information. But yeah, I'm gonna need a bit more content on Star King for that, which we don't even have in United Ring right now. So that one has to wait a little. But thank you very much for watching. Again, if you didn't see your question in this video, I'm terribly sorry, but there were way too many and I had to cut things down. After Alicization ends, we're gonna have War of Underworld Q&A for episode 23, of course, which is the final episode. But after that, I will keep doing SAO Q&As in general, maybe weekly, maybe monthly, we'll see, depending on the frequency of questions. But yeah, I have no intention of stopping this, and they're gonna be more free-flowing as well, not exactly episode-oriented, so you can ask a whole lot more varied questions, so do look forward to that. But that's about it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay cool.